Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being part of our council meeting tonight. I'd like to call this meeting of the Brooklyn City Council to order. Mary Jo, can you please call the roll?
Andy Selhertz.
Here.
Kathy Pucci.
Here.
Aaron Borowski.
Here.
Kevin Tansky.
Here.
Sue Grodick.
She is absent this evening, excused.
Ryan Van Kirk.
Here.
Meg Ryan Shaki. Here.
Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. To start our meeting this evening, I would like to offer a moment of silence in memory of firefighter Johnny Tetrick, who lost his life in a tragic accident while serving the Cleveland community last week. Thank you. Thank you to Mr. Tetrick, as well as to all of the Brooklyn firefighters and all the firefighters around the community that filled in so that the Cleveland Fire Department could have all representation, all the apparatuses represented at the memorial service. So, Chief Paul, thank you so much for what you and all your guys do. We appreciate it every day. All right, the first item on our agenda this evening is our approval of minutes dated November the 14th. Are there any additional comments or questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
To approve the minutes, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Sue Grodick. Oh, I'm sorry. Ryan Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki. Yes.
All right, at this time, we will have the public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer.
Wally Parker, 7301 Memphis Avenue. I just want to remind everybody that Santa's going to be coming around Brooklyn on the weekends of the 10th and the 11th, and he's switching things up a little bit. If you're used to seeing him on Saturday, he'll be around on Sunday evening. If you're used to seeing him on Sunday evening, he's going to be around on Saturday. Hopefully that'll give the people that have to work one of the Tuesdays a chance to see him.
Thank you very much. All right, well, Santa won't wake me up from my Sunday nap this time. Thank you, Mr. Parker.
Good evening, everyone. Vic Ardito, 7439 Outlook Avenue. A couple things to mention. Yeah, I'm an older guy and considering shopping. There's a whole lot of done online now. People should really think about buying stuff at the store and going to the stores. There's times when I need things and I miss Sears like a son of a gun. I needed a tool a couple weeks ago. Went to Menards, Lowe's, Home Depot. Called Harbor Freight, and nobody, you have to know what I'm talking about, especially Harbor Freight, but the other places, the tool selection was not there, amongst other things that Sears had. Misfortunately, from what I understand, Sears misfortunately bought too many things and put themselves out of business. Another thought is, any word on the Memphis Bridge? If there has, I've missed it. And Rob's not here to appreciate it. No, he is. Mary, you have passed them up on an answer about the firemen every time. I know I've wondered about an answer, and I know there's citizens that are watching this that are asking what's going on. Thank you.
Kelly Crawl, 10523 Manoa Avenue. I am speaking on behalf of myself, a private resident of Brooklyn, though I may reference the school board. Freedom of speech is no longer free. Long gone are the days of constructive criticism and meaningful conversations. We are no longer kind. People who want to speak up or speak out, defend themselves, or just give their honest opinion are afraid of backlash or being ridiculed. So, although I am speaking for myself, please know that others share the same sentiments. I am grateful for the City of Brooklyn for passing our renewal levy, a renewal levy with no new tax, and one of 3 levies that are a flat dollar amount that do not fluctuate with the increase or decrease of property tax. When I ran for school board, it was because I wanted to make a difference. I want to be an advocate for our children and help the schools grow and evolve and improve. Over the last 7 years, I've spent hundreds, if not thousands, of hours volunteering. So I guess you could say I'm quite passionate about our schools. I also have great interest and pride in the city I live in, so who knows, I could be sitting up there with some of you one day. I just find it quite disappointing that council members who can publicly support a multitude of political candidates cannot publicly support the school system in the very city that they reside and represent, only in private and out of the ears of public. I find it appalling that a council member would admit to never voting for a school levy because they can't have control. Last I checked, this was America. When you were elected to your positions, you were elected to represent the entire city and all its residents. How can you decide that these students are worth a quality education and these students are not? I am a firm believer that a strong school system makes a strong city. If we want to make Brooklyn a desirable place to live and to raise a family, we need a good school system. I am only one person, but I will work my hardest to bridge the gap because the city and the school need to work together if we want to move forward together and make Brooklyn great again. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll now have reports of our committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin this evening with our Public Safety Committee. Councilwoman Ranshocky.
Thank you. We did not hold the tentative scheduled meeting I talked about at the last council meeting tonight due to a lengthy council of the whole agenda. Instead, we will be meeting sometime in January once we have an agreed upon date. Please stay tuned if you're interested in giving feedback on the chicken and apartment lighting and security ordinances. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you. City of Brooklyn Christmas kickoff begins with a Christmas pajama night at the North Polar Express Skate, aka the Brooklyn Rec Center, Friday, December 9th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Pictures with the Polar Express train, Believer Bells, hot cocoa, letters to Santa, and ice skating with Christmas music. Skate rental is free, but limited sizes are available. Special Christmas crafts will be available for purchase. Registration is required. Sign up now at www.brooklynrec.com. Next Recreation Board meeting will be held on December 19th in the Rec Center Meeting Room, 7 p.m. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is our School Board Liaison, Councilwoman Pucci.
Thank you. The school board met Tuesday, November 15th at 6 p.m. There was an approval of a classified staff member and a volunteer, a discussion of the 5-year forecast, and an executive session to discuss land, potential sale of land. The next meeting is Tuesday, November 29th, 6 p.m., room 173. And the one after that is Tuesday, December 6th, 6 p.m. in the treasurer's office. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Grodick is not here tonight, so I'll give the Planning Commission report. The next meeting will take place on December the 7th to hear the following request. A request from Advanced Sign Company, LLC for an LED illuminated wall sign for Absolute Care at 7580 Northcliffe Avenue. A request from Shahir Hassanin for an LED internally illuminated wall sign for Special Smoker Smoke Shop at 6950 Bidoff. A request from WD Partners for a final site plan approval for an 8,300 square foot expansion for Walmart at 10,000 Brook Park Road. A conditional use request for a library in a residential district for Cuyahoga County Public Library, Brooklyn Branch, 7619 Memphis Avenue, and that's currently where the City Hall sits. Then a request from Bialowski for a preliminary site plan approval for the Cuyahoga County Public Library, Brooklyn Branch at 7619 Memphis Avenue. And again, that will take place on December the 7th right here in City Hall. The Committee of the Whole did meet this evening at 6 p.m. We moved the time back 15 minutes because we had a rather lengthy agenda. Under our legislation, the first item was Resolution 2022-44, and this is to allow for the city to enter an agreement with Senior Transportation Connection. We had a representative from Senior Transportation that was here to present the new rollout for this plan if it were to be adopted, answer a series of questions from members of City Council. And I think got all the questions answered, at least it seemed to be, and I'm looking forward, if this passes, to partnering with Senior Transportation Connection. Then Ordinance 2022-29, this authorizes the capital improvement plan for 2023. Mr. Raguse discussed this at length at a previous council meeting. and council did the committee did recommend the council adopt. Ordinance 2022-30, amending section 505.21. This is for the hunting, poisoning, and trapping of animals in the city of Brooklyn. This would increase the penalty provision if such an occurrence takes place. And again, this was discussed at length at a prior council meeting, and committee did recommend council adopt. On second reading is ordinance 2022-32. This is the ordinance that Mrs. Ryan Shockey discussed, the apartment complex security in dealing with lighting and cameras at those facilities. The committee did recommend that council hold this in abeyance until after the public safety that will take place sometime in January. Ordinance 2022-33. This amends the ordinances of our city to amend the guidelines for snow removal services provided by the city. And again, this was discussed at length at prior council meetings as well, and the committee did recommend that council adopt. Ordinances 2022-34 through ordinances 2022-42 are all dealing with the zoning code. We did have a rather lengthy discussion in council, in the committee of the whole meeting in regards to some objections that the school board may have regarding this. And so we did discuss an alternate plan or what the plan will be moving forward. And basically at this point is to be determined what is going to happen in the near future when it comes to that. Next up was ordinance 2022-44. This is amending section 505.8, and this will allow for certain residents, if they meet qualifications, to keep chickens in the city of Brooklyn. This was also supposed to be part of the public safety meeting that will take place in January, so the committee did recommend this be held in abeyance as well. Ordinance 2022-45, this amends the annual appropriations for this year. Mr. Raguse went through the list of what those appropriation changes are at our last meeting. That is on second reading. Ordinance 2022-46 is the annual appropriations, the budget for next year. And once again, Mr. Raguse did go through and line by line a lot of those items there at the last meeting. And all this information is available on board docs if people would like to read through it. And then lastly was ordinance 2022-47, and this provides for the compensation for part-time, full-time, and administrative employees that are not part of a bargaining agreement for the city. This makes some adjustments, basically makes adjustments to compensate for the increase in minimum wage, as some other adjustments as well, so that the city can compete when it comes to hiring employees for certain positions. In addition to the agenda, we just had a discussion over the ambulance fees that the city is currently charging for the ambulance services, and this will be an ongoing conversation. But LifeForce, who is the organization that we use to kind of manage those billing, has made a recommendation that we increase those pretty significantly. And this would not affect residents, as residents are not charged beyond their insurance for ambulance fees, but it would affect those who are in our city or who work in our city that are non-residents. If we increase these fees and their insurance does not cover the entire amount, they would get billed those differences. And so that'll be an ongoing discussion. We did discuss that in the committee of the whole as well. And then the mayor briefly discussed the new library layout as was part of the planning commission meeting for December 7th for the conditional use and the site plan approval. The design is finished. It looks really nice. The members of council have had a chance to look at it. Of course, the community will be able to see that in short order as well. And so we will look to move forward with that here in short order. Of course, not until after we move out across the street, and then this building will be torn down. I believe that is all that we covered in committee of the whole. That does normally take place at 6:15 prior to the start of all council meetings. All are welcome to attend. All right, I believe that concludes all of our reports of committees. We'll now move on with our reports of council. We begin this evening with Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. First, I'd like to offer my deepest condolences to the family of Betty Hopp. She was a longtime resident and also a longtime employee of our rec center. And when I think of Betty, I think of the word spunky. She was always up for a conversation and was very spirited. She was very close with the other staff and was also close with our student employees at the rec. And she was always ready with good advice for them. I know the staff, including our student staff, have very fond memories of working with her. She was also very welcoming of our patrons and always took the time to interact with the children. Betty had lifelong friends that she kept in touch with, and she never forgot her roots growing up with her grandparents. Betty will be deeply missed by her family and many friends. Also, my condolences also go out to the family, friends, and Cleveland Fire Department on the tragic passing of firefighter Johnny Tetrick, who was killed in the line of duty. By all accounts, he was an outstanding firefighter and a wonderful dad and friend to many. I know that the perpetrator may have been impaired, but I think it is worth reminding people to please observe the emergency vehicles and our first responders. Too many drivers do not pull over to the right, nor do they change lanes to go around them when they have incidents on the highway, even though it is the law. When our first responders leave home, they do not know what they're going to encounter that day. They risk their lives protecting and aiding all of us. I hope that as equipment evolves, future fire apparatus will be equipped with cameras similar to what are now on school buses. They capture the drivers who do not stop or go around the buses. In the meantime, please be aware of and be extra cautious when our first responders are out there. I know, it seems everybody's in a hurry and everybody's very distracted nowadays, but literally that can be the difference between them going home to their families or not. Regarding ordinance 2022-33, which adds those who are disabled to the eligibility for our snow removal program, I just want to make sure that we revisit this next year to discuss removing the income requirement for this program. And Mr. Ardito, the Memphis Avenue Bridge is now the end of January. I'm not sure if there's a specific date or not. And Ms. Kroll, I agree with you that a strong school system is critical to a vibrant city. And I'm happy to work with you in any way you want to try and bridge that divide. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Borowski.
Thank you. Good evening, City of Brooklyn. Hopefully everyone had a safe and happy Thanksgiving. I used the day I had to reflect on the importance of not only my family and my faith, but of the entire community that is blessed to call Brooklyn home. And I'd like to also say, as Ms. Pucci said, the loss of firefighter Tetrick is a painful moment for Northeast Ohio. It brings attention the dangers that our safety forces face and the importance of ensuring that they have the proper equipment needed to do the job. Over the last couple of days, I reached out to Fire Chief Paul and Chief Melky as well, asking them if they have the proper cones, the proper flares, and so forth. And Chief Melky even let me know that they had applied for a small grant for more LED light-up collapsible cones. And the fire chief told me on the phone that thankfully that we do have the right equipment for accident scenes. Our firefighters, our police officers go out on a daily basis and face things that we don't know, and we need to make sure that they have the proper equipment, and I'm glad that the chiefs told me that they do. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mr. Tansky.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to take this time to give two big reasons why I'm not in support of ordinance 2022-44. I believe city jobs should stay in-house and city-controlled and not subcontracted. Number one, every time one job disappears out of the public employee pension fund, that fund has less participants, causing deficiencies down the road that cities, states, and counties will have to make up for the losses. Many public pensions have taken steps backwards. Many other pensions were going insolvency, causing taxpayers to pay the burden, using taxpayers' monies by the millions to fund its liability. This is definitely not the right thing to do by far. Our response should not be to save monies now and kick the can down the road later. That to me is irresponsible, and I will be no part of it. I have seen and been part of pension deficiencies and why it happens. I will fight against things like this when I know in my heart is wrong. If the union allowed this job to go non-union, that's one thing. But the city should keep this in PRS to protect the pension that everyone up here enjoys, including all public pensions. I have pushed back hard on this subcontracting attitude, both private and public, and been a big advocate against any subcontracting. This was brought up with the fire department and also again with the service department in the past regarding garbage pickup. I then took a stance against it. I know this is only one job, but I've seen the devastation of pensions, so to me, one job is too many. Public and private pensions depend on more participants, not less. One major example is the private pension plan, such as the Central States Teamster pension, that the U.S. President and Congress had to fund it with taxpayers' money to keep these funds from going insolvent by 2025. No taxpayer should have to pay someone else's pension for mismanagement due to subcontracting. This is totally wrong, and I will not stand by while it comes to my vote to allow it. The main cause of these losses is lack of participants due to subcontracting and/or trade agreements. Since these losses of memberships in PERS, SERS, and private pensions may have taken steps backward to keep up the payment of these pension checks. Under public pensions, in future deficits, the next step is to raise contributions from public paychecks or raise cities' contributions towards the fund to make up participant loss, which has been discussed in the past. This is a direct hit on taxpayers. Again, the answer is not to save now and kick the can down the road and pay later. Number two, having an employee in a house, you have more control over that employee on how he operates and conducts business. This could possibly go to a resident needing a job to make ends meet. We have not yet subbed out jobs in our labor end. Let's not start now. I know if I go into any one of our unions in-house or outside of our house, this would not go well. I'm asking council that also is in PRS and that one is definitely in SCRS to turn down any subcontracting. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Ryan Shuckey.
I just want to thank Miss Marcico and Miss Campbell's classes to come out with Councilman Selcher to myself to the cleanup. We went over to the school last week Tuesday and went over and cleaned up Markward Park. There was a bit of trash over there that we found probably from summer soccer games and whatnot, but we had a lot of fun with the students and got them out of the class for a couple of hour and a half or so. So we started this project last year with Keep Brooklyn Beautiful, and I'm glad we were able to bring it back this year. So thank you to both of them and their entire classes and the other aides that came out to clean up Markward Park. And that ends my report.
Thank you. Mr. Sellards.
Thank you. I have no report.
Very good. All right, I've talked enough tonight, so at this point I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Council President. I know Ron mentioned that the library plans would be available to the public. They are available to the public right now. If you want to check them out, just go to Board Docs on Planning Commission. They are up for preliminary approval at the next meeting. So all of those documents are available on Board Docs right now to view. Second, Mr. Tansky, I don't know if there's some confusion, but this was an agreement with the union in our last contract. There's an MOU, and Ed Stutzman retired. This position was no longer in the union. So
I did mention that when we read it again.
no,
I did mention it, but I'm not arguing in the union, arguing on the pension plan. And I can read that part again if you want to.
No, I don't need to hear about the pension plan again. But I just want to make it clear that this was something that the union and city came to terms with in this current
But the
contract.
bargaining agreement has nothing to do with PRS.
No.
The bargaining union employee has to do with you removing a union job into a non-union end. The bargaining agreement does not say, or did
I
you
don't
agree to-
remember you voting no on the contract, so.
You're not listening. The bargaining unit removes the member out of the union. The bargaining unit has no right to say where that member is going in PRS or out of PRS. So you are right. We voted to move the member from the union, which is now a non-union job. That, you're right. What I'm going after is I'm against subcontracting, removing participants from the pension fund, causing less going into pension fund and more coming out. eventually you have to make up those losses. You can sit back and say, well, that's down the line. I've seen what those losses have done. And that's what I'm going after. I'm going after because you're removing it out of PRS. And I did bring it up to her. Those are not PRS jobs. Those are under private Social Security plans. And that's when I asked her that. So you are right about the union employee, and we did agree, but not out of PRS. It can still be in PRS, non-union.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. And I want to let everyone know, I think I sent this to council, that we did have this NOACA street timing scheduled for this month. It did get kicked back to January, so hopefully that will get done. It would be nice if they got it done before the second phase of construction on Ridge Road. Thank you, Mr. Parker, for all you do for Santa. Just for everyone's benefit, I'm going to read off what will get posted tomorrow. It is on the city's website. So the routes have been flipped. So Saturday the 10th, starting at noon, Santa Sleigh will travel to Taunton and Hammond area, then head north to Memphis Avenue, starting near City Hall. Santa will then travel the area around St. Thomas More Church, the Westbrook Village Apartments, and the streets behind the Westbrooks. His sleigh will head to Tiedemann Road, turn onto Bidoff, and visit the homes north of Bidoff Road. You can check out and follow Santa Sleigh on the city's Facebook page that day. On the 11th, on Sunday, starting at noon, Santa Sleigh will travel from Tiedemann to Bidoff towards Ridge Road and visit all the homes south of Bidoff and the Brooklyn Acres and the streets east of Ridge. So thank you again. Thank you for all of the Santa and his volunteers that do this every year. It's one of the best traditions in Brooklyn. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. I believe we just have one director's report, Mr. Butler. Did you have anything? I thought you did. If you didn't, I apologize.
No, Mr. Chair, the mayor had asked me just to address the issue over the zoning of the school parcels, and I don't know if we've covered that sufficiently in committee of the whole, that perhaps you would want me to refrain from delivering some sort of director's report. It wouldn't be any different from what we discussed.
Please feel free. That wasn't recorded, so please feel free.
Okay, sure. We've heard, I think the mayor has heard from the school superintendent that there were concerns expressed by school board members over the rezoning, what would be the rezoning of the 4 school parcels were the map changes to be adopted, and the school parcels were to be placed in what would be the new public facilities zoning district. Those school parcels currently sit within the single-family dwelling house zone, which permits only single-family homes as permitted uses. The single-family dwelling house zone under the city's current zoning code also permits as conditionally permitted uses, which come with a host of additional approvals required, applications and approvals and showings. Schools, libraries, museums, religious facilities, parks and playgrounds, municipal recreation facilities, hospitals, and public safety facilities. Those are conditionally permitted uses within single-family residential zones. The schools, therefore, aren't permitted uses in the single-family residential zone in which they sit, those 4 parcels. They are, at best, conditionally permitted, although we don't believe that there's a history of them ever having received conditional use approval, which would at worst make them non-conforming uses within the single-family residential zone. We do not know why the school, if this is in fact the case, that school board members have expressed concerns over this rezoning, and it sounds as from tonight's committee, the whole meeting, as if at least one of them has expressed concerns. We don't know why, and we don't know why the schools would wish to perpetuate a non-conforming use of their own property within that zone, or a use that's not permitted as of right. By moving those 4 school parcels, along with a whole host of additional government properties, into the public facilities zone, what would be the new public facilities zone, the school district would then be able to use the school property without having to receive any special approval of the city in order to maintain and expand on that school use within that zone. So if we were to press forward and rezone the properties, the 4 school parcels to public facilities, those school district would be able to, for example, create an expansion of the schools or build a new facility, school-related facility on their property without any special approval of the city, which I believe is what the taxpayers would want, because the schools ought to be able to be the masters of their own destiny when it comes to school property, and not have to subject themselves to a political process that would involve city approvals of school district activity. And so I think our concern as an administration is that the school district board members, if they do in fact object, they haven't really given a reason why they object to the rezoning of those school parcels into a new zone that actually accommodates their use better than the single-family residential zone does. And apparently the school board is intending to have a meeting on the subject, but up until that time has not offered any explanation for why there would be any objection to this carefully thought out proposed change to their land. As committee will discussed, trying to take some sort of alternative approach where we would continue to have the school district parcels remain in the single-family dwelling house zone, despite how odd that would be, particularly when our objective is to modernize the zoning map and conform it to existing uses. But if we do in fact head down that path, we'll probably wind up having to delay the process of approval until some point in January, and that would still give us time to get the ballot measures onto the ballot for the May election next year, which would be okay. We'll figure out a way to do that procedurally if in fact council wants to amend the map and revert the school district parcels back to single-family dwelling house. That's really lays out the issue, and I hope I can answer any additional questions you might have on the floor.
No questions from me, thank you. Anyone else?
May I just ask a question? Is Mr. Ruse going to give a finance report?
You will.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Butler. I know that was repeating a lot of what you said in the meeting, but I appreciate doing that again. So.
Sure.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, next up we do have Mr. Raguse for our finance report. So, Mr. Raguse, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Just one item for me tonight, just a review of the October general fund financial report. On the revenue side, overall revenues are 92% of the estimated amount, 12% less than prior year due to a decrease in income tax revenue of $2.4 million. Majority of this decrease is due to non-recurring revenue. So there's a net decrease of one-time non-recurring revenue from net profit of $1.4 million, and then a net decrease from one-time non-recurring revenue from withholding of $144,000. And we also have a large employer withholding loss of $1.2 million as compared to last year, which has been consistent throughout the year. On the commitment side, bottom half of the financial report, overall commitments are 82% of the budgeted amount and 4% more than October 2021. So it's trending pretty well with last year, especially taking into account the 3% wage increases that the majority of the employees got for the city this year. We received our income tax distributions from RETA for November. Overall, distribution is $1.62 million, $533,000 more than November of 2021. Withholding accounts for a gain of $334,000. Majority of this gain is due to some of our larger organizations having an extra pay period in September as compared to prior years. And we also received a net profit individual income tax gain of $199,000. That concludes my report tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's all the reports that we have. We'll now move on with our legislation for this evening. The first item is on second reading, Resolution 2022-44, authorizing the mayor to enter an agreement with Senior Transportation Connection to provide senior bus transportation services to the city of Brooklyn. The next two ordinances are up for third reading and adoption. Ordinance 2022-29, authorizing the capital improvement plan for 2023. Are there additional comments or questions?
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Aaron Borowski,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk, Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-30, amending section 505.21 titled Hunting, Poisoning, and Trapping Prohibited of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn to amend the penalty provision. Additional comments or questions?
Move to adopt?
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Aaron Borowski,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-32 is on second reading, enacting Chapter 765 Apartment Complex Security of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn, and I will make a motion that council hold in abeyance.
Second.
To hold in abeyance, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Aaron Borowski,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Ordinance 2022-33 is up for third reading and adoption, amending section 959.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn to amend eligibility guidelines for snow removal services provided by the city. Any comments or questions?
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Aaron Borowski,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Okay, the next 9 items are on second reading. Ordinance 2022-34, adopting new Part 11 Planning and Zoning Code of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn and the new official zoning map of the city. Ordinance 2022-35, providing for the submission to the electors of the City of Brooklyn, Section 1102.09 of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn, creating the new Public Facilities PF and Park and Open Spaces PO zoning districts. Ordinance 2022-36, submit rezoning of properties to public facilities PF to voters. Ordinance 2022-37, submit rezoning of properties to parks and open spaces PO to voters. Ordinance 2022-38, submit rezoning of properties to general industrial G-I to voters. Ordinance 2022-39, submit rezoning of properties to general business G-B to voters. Ordinance 2022-40, submit rezoning of properties to dwelling house D-H to voters. Ordinance 2022-41, submit rezoning of properties to retail business R-B to voters. And lastly, ordinance 2022-42, submit rezoning of properties to apartment house A-8 to voters. Next is ordinance 2022-44, amending section 505.08, certain animals prohibited, and enacting section 505.27, restrictions on keeping of chickens of the codified ordinances of the City of Brooklyn to regulate the keeping of chickens. And I will make a motion that council hold in abeyance.
Second.
To hold in abeyance, Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Aaron Borowski,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
The last 3 items are on second reading. Ordinance 2022-45, amended annual appropriations. Ordinance 2022-46, annual appropriations. And 45 is for the 2022 amendments. The next one, 46, is for the 2023 budget. Then ordinance 2022-47, amending Exhibit A of ordinance 2022-43, provided for the compensation for the part-time, full-time, and administrative employees non-bargaining agreement of the City of Brooklyn, Ohio. That is all our agenda. I will make a motion in a moment to move into executive session, but does anyone else have any comments or questions for council meeting as a whole?
Tonight, we're asking to go into executive session for preparing, conducting, or reviewing collective bargaining strategy by Division G4 of Section 121.22 of the revised code. Mr. Butler, would you like to add anything?
Nothing for executive session, Mayor. I just want the motion to be clear, though, that the reason we would be going into executive session is for the purpose of discussing pending collective bargaining negotiations.
I'll make a recommendation that council move to executive session as, for the reason as stated by Mr. Butler. Including the executive session will be council, the mayor, and Mr. Butler.
Second.
Oh, and Mr. Raguse as well.
Thank you.
Second.
Second time, Chair.
10 cents, it's feeling better.
To adjourn to executive session, Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Aaron Borowski.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
After executive session is over, council will simply come back into adjourn our meeting. No further business will be conducted. Thank you. Have a blessed evening.